This time around, I want us to learn something else. I want to share with you the difference between asset and liability. Yeah, like asset, if you have an asset, it should be things that makes you money. All the things that investments, anything that you have that makes you money, that is called an asset. It adds you more money. And liability are things that takes money from your pocket. Things that cost you money to acquire and to maintain. That is called a liability. Example of assets are stocks that earn you dividends. Those as you can categorize them as assets. There's a bond. Bond also are assets. There's a rental property. If you have a rental property, that one is also called an asset because it generates you income every month. Also, things like if you're in business also you can call an asset because business actually it earns you money. It's an investment you start, but it earns you more money. So, considering on the assets, the asset bracket, what you need, any investment that you've incurred, that you've done, and you know you have a steady cash flow. Whatever brings you cash flow is called an asset. On the flip side, liability are what takes money from your pocket. Examples of liabilities are things like cars. You see, if you use your personal car, is not an asset. One mistake that people have is they think having a car is having an asset. Car is not an asset. A house also is not an asset. If you have your own house that you live in, that is not an asset. A house is categorized as an asset when it earns you money. And for instance, you see, if you're living in a house, there's no money that the house is earning you. That's why you realize most of the people, they think that when they acquire a house, that one is an asset that they'll be having. People get confused between the asset, between the house as an asset or a property, a rental property as an asset. Anything that when you live in a house, you incur cost, monthly cost. You have bills to pay, you have things to pay. So basically, that one is a liability. With time, maybe on our next video, we'll be able to share with you the difference, to expound further on the house as a liability. But for now, I just need you to know that house is a liability. Unless it's a rental house that you have or a rental property that you have, that is the only time you can call it an asset. But when you are living on it as a person, you're better off staying in a rental house, and you make sure all the houses that you own earns you some income. That is when you can be able to categorize it as an asset. We create wealth. Most of the people, we create wealth by focusing more on the assets and less on the liability. Let's put this into perspective. For instance, I just want to put this small illustration into perspective. If you have like 1 million shillings and you decide you want to buy a car with 1 million shilling, or you have 1 million shillings, someone puts it on stock exchange. Yeah, let me work with an example of three different examples. You have one person has decided to take 1 million shillings and invest in stock exchange. The other person decided to take 1 million shillings and invest in a business. And the other person, one person has decided to take 1 million shillings and invest in a car. You realize out of the three, 2 are assets and 1 is a liability. So what happens as a liability, if you decide to buy a car, you use 1 million shillings to buy a car. Automatically, when you leave the showroom with the car definitely loses like 20% of the value. You can't sell it back again to the same price that you bought it. So basically, automatically, you've already lost some money by just driving your car outside of the yard. Number 2, this is a person who decided to put on stock. When you put it on stock, the money, the 1 million shillings will still be intact. It will be 1 million. And immediately you start, as days goes by, it will start earning you some interest and dividends, so that by monthly and annually you'll get some dividends and some interest on it. The third person also who decided to invest, maybe to do it in a business, the 1 million that you put in to maybe buy stock and item to stock the business, definitely it will start earning you money. So what happens? Business property, stock, all those, that is why we call them assets. Because you know, they don't lose value and they earn you income. On the flip side, a car, if you have a car, automatically, number one, the value has dropped. You can't sell it at the same price you bought it for. Number two, from that time henceforth, when the wear and tear, everything that you have, you'll still be having to go back to your pocket. You take from your pocket and you service it, you maintain it, you do all the repairs, all those kind of things. So that's why one thing we've decided, so that's why they say cars and residential houses are never categorized as assets. They are liabilities. Unless you're using the car like for business. If you buy a car for business that can help like for transport of the staff and all those kind of things, that one is different. But if you use for your own personal use, it's called a liability. So one thing that we are advised is try as much as possible to make sure you reduce much on the liability and invest more on the asset. We'll be able to learn more. We'll learn more about how to, the different stages of assets and how we can be able to acquire and even to grow. Because I've realized the rich create wealth by investing more on assets to create their net worth. And wealth is what you don't see, but liabilities are what you see. But the challenge is people tend to mistake liabilities for wealth. Most are wealthy people. You'll never ever see wealth. Wealth don't display themselves, but liabilities, you'll see them all over. Everyone with the flashy cars and all those kind of things. Those are all liabilities. The advantage of having assets, real assets, as compared to liability is, real assets will create you wealth even when you're asleep, when you don't even need to engage yourself on it. Things like, for instance, if you take like in the previous discussion what we had, any passive income and portfolio income, those ones can be categorized as assets, because you realize they bring you money and they grow your net worth. If you must have a liability, because I know most of us are now wondering why we need to have cars and everything, but this is the thing. If you must have a liability, the best thing to go about liability is make sure when you're acquiring a liability, you don't use your money to acquire the liability. Create income that are coming from your cash flow to acquire a liability. Let me explain it well. If you want to buy a car, I like using car example because everybody, actually now people prefer cars. Everyone wants to have a car. So if you need to have a car, you do not save all that money and you use it to buy a car. You do not save up to $1 million to go and buy a car. The best thing you can do is have the 1 million, save the 1 million. Now use that 1 million, instead of just going to buy a car, put it on an asset. And then the revenue you will acquire from the asset, that's what you can use to buy the car. That will be the best way of how to acquire a liability. If you must acquire a liability, never ever save to acquire a liability. Because once you save a liability, once you have it, you'll acquire it. From the first day you'll have acquired it, you'll start losing money. And 2, 3, 5 years down the lane, the value will even drop to a quarter of the total cost that you used to buy it. So the best thing you can ever do is don't save to acquire a liability. Save to start a passive income generation activity or a portfolio activity, and then the proceeds from the portfolio and the passive generating facility. Now that is what you can use to acquire a liability. So with the few that I've learned today, at least I'm just trying to break the ice slowly by slowly so that you can be able to know and to have the best ideas and the best way of how you can be able to generate. First of all is to know what income bracket we are. Once we're done with knowing what income bracket we are, we need to separate, we need to know between the liability and asset. Once we separate the two, and we'll be able to define the difference. Now that will be good food. That will be a good way for us to start off on the journey to creating wealth. Because wealth, one thing I've come to realize, creating wealth needs patience, it needs tolerance, it needs sacrifice, and if you need to create real wealth, you need to practice patience. Because with the patience, you'll be able now to learn. Take your time, learn the different types of income bracket that you want to achieve, learn the difference between asset and liability. Once you've learned that, you can be able now to know what and how you want to start off on your journey to creating wealth. Thanks a lot for watching. There's more coming up on the next videos, and if there's anything that you feel I've not expounded on nicely well, and you really need to get further details on it, just share on the comment section below, and I'll be able to address and handle everything. Because this, as I said, I need us to learn and see how best we can be able to improve our lives, and to create wealth. The end goal of us here is to create wealth. So thanks a lot for watching. See you again on the next video.